Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, for about £350 you can have one of these. Not a cardboard box, they generally tend to be a bit cheaper than that, but what is inside this cardboard box? I'm talking about the Punch Technology 2003 desktop PC. Now don't worry, the number there doesn't refer to the age of this machine, rather this PC is actually the cheapest 6-core system that I could find. So I thought we'd unbox it today, take a look at the detailed specs, see what you get for the money, review the system itself, talk about upgrade potential, things like that, and just see how this thing performs when it comes to games. But first, a word from our sponsor. There is no sponsor, it's just me. I just wanted to let you know that we have some more handmade limited edition random gaming t-shirts available. My sister actually hand stitches these, or hand stitches the emblem onto them. There are a few available in size large over on Etsy now, so the link will be in the description. Back to the video. So let's crack open this box and see what you get for your money when it comes to buying the cheapest 6-core system in the UK, or at least the cheapest 6-core PC that I could find. So it's a basic looking machine, but you'll hear no complaints from me. There's two USB 2 and two USB 3 ports on the front, as well as headphone and microphone jacks, and around the back there's more of the same, as well as a few display outputs. Along with the PC itself, your £350 will buy you another, smaller cardboard box, which is home to the setup guide, motherboard manual and a bag of screws, along with a couple of cable ties thrown in. This is actually a nice touch. It's always handy to have some extra screws and motherboard standoffs. A power cable is also included. No keyboard or mouse with this one, but even basic users probably have a set lying around somewhere, right? If not, a basic keyboard and mouse combo is cheap enough these days. Let's crack open the case then and see what we have inside. Is this Punch PC any good, or will it make me want to punch it with frustration? This is a Ryzen based system, and it seems as though it uses a standard form factor, so no weird motherboard size or power supply that only works with this machine. I'm looking at you, Dell. This means that upgrading or replacing anything will be much easier, and while we're on the subject, the power supply itself might be a prime candidate for that. I have to remember that this is intended for basic users though, not for keen gamers. Though with that said, gaming should still be possible, and we'll get onto that later on. The 250 watt FSP Group PSU is fine for everyday tasks, and despite the motherboard having an 8-pin connector, I think this is okay, right? Using a 4-pin connector on an 8-pin board is totally okay, isn't it? I guess we'll find out. Slotted into the motherboard is the bane of my life, a single stick of RAM. This is an 8GB 3200MHz module, and for basic usage, again it's fine. On a more positive note, this does mean that there is room to upgrade to 16 gigs should anyone want to do so. We also get a 240GB SSD with this machine, and I should say now that no operating system is included. To keep costs down, you could download the Windows ISO from Microsoft and activate it with one of those super cheap eBay keys. If you want, I'm not saying you should, but you could. Don't try and use a Windows disk though, because, well, yeah. Okay, so no more suspense. What CPU does this thing use? Which 6-core processor resides under the stock cooler? Well, this machine uses a Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G. On their own, these CPUs are rare, only appearing in OEM systems like this one, and they often sell for over £200 on their own on eBay. I've installed a copy of Windows 10 Pro on this thing, as well as a couple of programs. I'll run my games off of another SSD because there wasn't really enough room to install everything on this one. As far as the CPU goes, it's a great chip. Even with a single stick of RAM in the system, it will perform really quite well, and will even outperform the Ryzen 5 3600 and i5 10400 under similar conditions. This means that anyone buying this will still be able to edit and render videos in programs like Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve just fine. For the money, it offers good performance that will satisfy the target market, but I couldn't call myself random gaming in HD without testing some games. This is where that single 8GB stick of RAM will be an issue. Gaming performance should be similar to that of a Ryzen 5 3400G, despite the slight differences with the integrated graphics specs. Yet here, the CPU was struggling. Again, I can't really complain. If this machine was strictly marketed to gamers, then I'd be a bit concerned, and I'd wonder why we didn't have a better PSU or dual channel RAM. But it's not. It's an everyday machine that just so happens to have the ability to sort of game. It's nice to confirm that the single 4-pin PSU connector attached to the 8-pin CPU plug on the motherboard doesn't actually cause any issues after all either, and the 4650G boosts to its max clock speed no problem. Let me put my money where my mouth is then and show you what you could expect with dual channel RAM instead of single. I swapped the 3200MHz single DDR4 stick for two 4GB sticks that were actually slower in speed, clocked at 2666MHz, just to further demonstrate how limiting one stick of RAM can really be, especially with these APUs. It wasn't uncommon to see the frame rate double in some test results. Fallout 4 was a good example for this. With a single stick of DDR4, the game struggled to hit 30 FPS despite the decent memory speed. When we swapped it out for two 4GB sticks, albeit clocked at just 2400MHz and overclocked to 2666, we saw double the frame rate here in Concord. This is why when you hear people, not just me, talking about dual channel RAM as being so much better, because it can literally mean the difference between playable and unplayable frame rates. Honestly, I do think that even PCs like this, ones that aren't marketed as gaming machines, should have dual channel RAM anyway because it is just so much better, but I suppose a single stick helps keep costs down. Where we struggled to hit even 60 frames per second in Fortnite's performance mode beforehand, our dual channel memory meant that we were averaging over 100 FPS now. This is the exact same amount of memory as before as well, just 8GB. 16 gigs of faster DDR4 will help even further with gaming performance, and I believe that 3200MHz is the sweet spot. It doesn't always cost that much more than 2666MHz stuff either, but I'd avoid 2400MHz RAM, even in dual channel, as from what I've noticed 2400MHz DDR4 gives us way more stutter than 2666MHz RAM, despite the speed difference not being that big. GTA 5 also went from unplayable to playable with our RAM swap. The game is running at 1080p with normal settings and still looks okay, to be honest, and anyone who is fine with 30 frames per second should be able to make use of slightly higher options, including some more advanced anti-aliasing and perhaps higher texture quality. The result I was most happy about today had to be Red Dead Redemption 2, which saw exactly double the performance on average. Swapping from a single stick of DDR4 to two sticks really makes all the difference when in combination with a fantastic AMD APU like this one. I'm actually tempted to swap my i5-10400F for this chip and board instead, to be honest, because it's always nice having an integrated GPU for a backup. So what about value for money? Personally, I think for the price you get a decent everyday computer. Selling the single stick of RAM and buying dual channel memory instead allows it to flourish, or simply adding another 8GB 3200MHz module to the existing one would make an even bigger difference and really show you this thing's full potential. It would turn this simple home PC into a budget gaming rig. This brings me on to upgradeability, of course. This machine uses standard components, so the RAM can be swapped with no compatibility issues, the power supply can be upgraded, and the motherboard is a micro ATX part. Everything can be swapped out for something else or replaced. A new power supply will mean that a better GPU can be added, and even if you wanted to slap something really fast in here like a 3060 Ti or 6700 XT for example, you could do that without worrying about the CPU holding you back because it's actually very capable. Now, I'm not sure of the availability of Punch PCs outside of the UK, but I'm sure there are some hidden gems out there that are similar in spec and should come in at a very similar equivalent price. A 4650G pre-built will probably cost you less than building a 4650G PC from scratch, wherever you are, because on their own, as I said, these chips are priced so high on the second-hand market. To all my UK viewers, this machine is available at Laptops Direct, and I'll leave a link in the description. For clarity, this PC was not provided for the video, nor was this video sponsored. I bought this machine with my own money. With all that said then, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like on it down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. I plan to test some more pre-builts in the future because, let's face it, not much else is actually available right now. And yeah, hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.